It's a bird! It's a plane! Oh no, it's just a little chibi Superman. Look how cute. Despite being the most universally familiar superhero, Superman doesn't have a ton of video games like Batman, who had 3 of his own on the NES alone. The 80s were a special decade for the Man of Steel, as Christopher Reeve had brought the character to life with 4 feature films that started in 1978 and wrapped up in 1987, the same year today's game came out in Japan. With Superman fever running high in the late 80s, let's see what's up with the Superman game on the NES. Here in Metropolis, you start as Clark Kent, the mild-mannered reporter for the Daily Planet. And you start by getting some clues from familiar characters at Daily Planet HQ, Lois Lane, Perry White, and Jimmy Olsen. Lois tells Clark there's something strange going down in Metro Park, and this sets the precedent for the recipe you'll follow for the rest of the game. Talk to strangers, get clues and hints to locations, find those locations on the map, and then travel there to vanquish enemies. The game wastes no time in letting you become Superman. As soon as you're outside, there's a phone booth and you can hop right in and switch over to the Man of Steel. So, you can either romp down the street on foot, fighting off goons, and talking to people. Or you can press select and see all of Superman's available abilities, one of which is flying. If you have enough power, you can select Super Flight, which allows you to take to the air and select the place on the map you want to go to. There are 2 minor hangups with this. The first is if you accidentally fly straight up instead of heading in a direction, it doesn't matter which direction, then you will just fly straight up and straight down and use some of your power to end up accomplishing absolutely nothing besides impressing a few street watchers and maybe startling a bird or 2. The second issue is that the map does not always allow the place you want to go to be selected when you want to fly. I never quite figured out when and why certain places became available to fly to, so be aware of that. Once you get to a spot where fighting has to occur, you can fight in a couple of different ways as Superman. You can rely on those big strong arms of yours and punch the place up. That allows you to get by most of the time, but some enemies require the use of heat vision to inflict damage or X-ray vision to even be seen. And depending on who you're fighting, there are 2 other special abilities labeled Super Breath 1 and Super Breath 2 that either ignite or freeze enemies. You'll know which ones to use if you take in all of the clues from folks around Metropolis. You can always tell when you are near where you're supposed to be, as Superman's supersonic hearing, indicated in the upper right of the screen, will flash when he hears someone screaming "Help!", so get there quick. There's even a super spin ability for burrowing down in the ground in some areas. One interesting and even frustrating component is that Superman's jump is outrageous compared to Clark's, as you'd expect, but Clark's is much more manageable from a combat perspective. You have to be right up on enemies to punch them, and you'll often take damage due to being too close. If you're trying to be adept at maneuvering around the enemies, the smaller jumps from Clark are better suited for that, as Superman launches into the air like Muggsy Bogues off a trampoline, which can be unwieldy. If your health dips below a certain amount, you will automatically change from Superman back into Clark Kent. Your cape and spandex will disappear right off your body and back into your newsy uniform. Beyond that, if you continue to lose health, you die. And obviously, while you're Clark, you can't use any of Superman's abilities. All you can do is throw punches, which are effective to a point, but not great in a tight spot or especially against a boss. But there are infinite continues in that you'll be taken back to the Daily Planet and need to re-navigate to where you left off, so it's not too punishing. There are passwords here too for resuming play, and while the game ultimately isn't very long, it might take a little time to figure out what is going on in each level, so the password option is appreciated. The game is open world to an extent, and each level is just a different mission in the same city, which you largely navigate left to right, but there are subway tunnels and the ability to fly that help you get around to some areas off the beaten path. I really like the way this game is laid out for an NES game. It has a sense of scale that you don't normally get from a side-scrolling game, and each area feels really unique. While most of the backgrounds are just buildings or parks, they are individually named, and almost every building can be entered and have some meaning to them, or hidden areas where you can find upgrades for your abilities and so forth. One thing to keep in mind is that when you're fighting off goons, they might drop different colored crystals. I thought it was capes at first, but evidently it's just shiny rocks. You do not want to pick up the red or green ones, as these are kryptonite, of which Superman is deathly allergic, and will decrease his health. And Clark's too, for that matter. Only go for the blue ones when they appear. The only blue crystals I'm aware of are from Breaking Bad, and you don't want to go near those either. In the game, the Statue of Freedom, yes, the Statue of Freedom, tells Superman that the evil General Zod will use Metropolis as his base, and Clark Kent needs to fight for truth and justice to defeat Zod. The game isn't directly based on the second Christopher Reeve Superman movie, although that one did feature Zod and his gang, as did the comic books. It appears the game draws inspiration from a few different Superman sources. Music-wise, the US version evidently didn't get the rights for Superman's true music, the John Williams score, unlike the Japanese version. That said, the music here is pretty decent, and the soundtrack clocks in at over 30 minutes long, which is rare to say the least on the NES, especially in late 1988 when this came out. Superman is a pretty decent NES game. That's to say, if you don't mind a little bit of an open-world experience, hampered by only a few mild frustrations, and perhaps the need to consult a walkthrough a few times to get yourself back on track. If that doesn't sound too bad, then you'll probably get along fine with this one. As mentioned, this isn't the only Superman game in town, but it was the only one officially released on the NES. There was, however, a prototype of another Superman game that was set to release on the NES in 1992, but never did. In development by Sunsoft, the same company who made the first two Batman games on the NES, this was eventually retitled Sunman, before dying out altogether. It looks really good, and plays well. It's a shame it never fully released, as it looks like it had a lot of promise. But I suppose the aim of coming out right when the console was nearing its end just didn't seem worth it to Sunsoft. Superman is a bigger, more true-to-form looking sprite, and the environs just scream Sunsoft. As a huge Sunsoft fan from this era, I'm truly bummed this one never materialized, but there are ways to check it out if you're interested. Alright, that does it for Superman on the NES. Be careful around blue crystals, and thanks for watching.